All right, let's get right into it. We're going to take a look at one of the weirdest and most chaotic nights in American history. A moment of absolute panic and mystery that people are still talking about decades later, the so-called Battle of Los Angeles.
And really, this is the question at the heart of it all. For one insane hour, the U.S. military just unloaded a massive amount of anti-aircraft fire into the sky over a major American city. The thing is, what in the world were they shooting at? Because to this day, nobody really knows for sure.
So let's set the scene. We're going to piece together exactly what happened that night as chaos just completely erupted over a city that was already paralyzed with fear.
Looking at this timeline, you can just feel the tension ratchet up. It all kicks off after 2 a.m. with a blip on the radar. Just 10 minutes later, the whole of Los Angeles County is woken up by air raid sirens. And then, at 3:16 a.m., the shooting starts. Just imagine being on the ground. The sky is literally exploding with artillery fire for nearly an hour straight.
Now, I want you to understand, this wasn't just a few nervous soldiers with rifles. This was a full-blown military operation. We're talking thousands upon thousands of shells being fired into the darkness, creating this scene of absolute mayhem over a city trying to sleep. But remember, they were firing at something.
But to really get why everyone was so freaked out, we have to zoom out a little bit. This whole thing didn't just happen in a bubble. It happened at a time when the entire country was on edge.
The year is 1942, and that year, well, it's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Think about it. The attack on Pearl Harbor was still a fresh, open wound for the country. The shockwaves were still being felt, and the West Coast felt completely exposed. The threat of another attack didn't just seem possible, to many it felt imminent. So you've got this perfect storm brewing, right? People are super patriotic, but they're also incredibly anxious, almost paranoid. Everyone's afraid of spies and saboteurs. The entire population is on high alert, constantly scanning the skies. It was the absolute perfect environment for a scare to spiral way out of control.
So after the smoke clears, this is where the story gets really juicy. Two completely different, totally conflicting narratives start to emerge, and that's where the real mystery begins.
Okay, so on one side you've got the official government line. Everybody calmed down, it was just war nerves. A weather balloon got loose, and everyone's frayed nerves did the rest. But then you have the eyewitnesses, thousands of them, who are telling a very different story. They're describing a huge, glowing object that was moving slow and seemed completely unharmed by the thousands of shells being fired right at it. And you have to put yourself in their shoes. For the people on the ground, what they saw just didn't compute with anything they knew about airplanes. The way it moved, the way it just absorbed all that firepower, it's no wonder that a lot of them were convinced they were seeing something truly out of this world. And here's the really tragic part of this whole thing. After all that chaos, after firing over 1,400 artillery shells, guess how many enemy planes they shot down? 0. Not a single one. No wreckage, no evidence of an attack, nothing. The only actual casualties from the battle were innocent civilians on the ground, hit by the falling shrapnel from their own military's guns. So you can imagine when the government comes out and says, "Oops, our bad, false alarm," a lot of people just weren't buying it. The explanation felt flimsy compared to the massive scale of what they had all just lived through. And that disbelief, that suspicion, it created this huge information vacuum. And that vacuum of information, well, it got filled with a brand new and pretty wild idea. One that looked a little higher than enemy nations for an explanation. Now remember, back in the 40s, the whole idea of alien spaceships wasn't mainstream like it is today. It was pretty fringe stuff. But for some people trying to make sense of this event, it felt like the only explanation that fit. I mean, if it wasn't a plane and it wasn't a balloon, what else could it be? And this theory didn't just pop up out of nowhere, it caught on like wildfire, and there are a few key reasons why. The newspapers had a field day with it, for one. The government's weak explanation made people suspicious, and those eyewitness accounts were just so powerful. This image of an unstoppable object in the sky was hard to shake. It all tapped into this growing fascination with the unknown.
Now let's be really clear about this. We all know about Roswell, right? Well, the Battle of Los Angeles happened years before that. You could absolutely argue that this was the event that really kick-started America's public obsession with UFOs. It's a true cornerstone of UFO culture.
So why are we still so fascinated by this weird night from 1942 all these decades later? Well, because the mystery was never really solved, and its legacy is just immense.
I mean, its cultural footprint is absolutely massive. You see it pop up everywhere. It's been in movies, it's inspired tons of books, and it's still a major case study for UFO researchers. Even military historians study it as a classic example of wartime panic.
At the end of the day, this story sticks with us because it's about more than just strange lights in the sky. It's this perfect mix of real human anxiety, that wartime paranoia, and our deep, deep curiosity about what else might be out there.
Which leaves us with the big question, right? Was this whole thing just a citywide panic attack, a classic case of mass hysteria fueled by the intense fear of war? Or was it something else entirely? A genuine brush with the unexplained, and maybe even a sneak peek of the kinds of mysteries that would fascinate us for the rest of the century? What do you think really happened?